Fashion.
Bishop Lamor Whitehead, it's time for you to come before the Fashion Board Review, or the FBR as it's better known, because you have been found guilty in the court of fashion opinion. Hey everybody, this is HeSpoke Fashion, and I am your host, Daylon Thomas. And in this episode, we're going to discuss the viral moment that has hit the church yet again. Of course, just last week, everyone was in an uproar concerning gospel singer Kim Burrell. And not to be outdone by that, this week, Bishop Lamor Whitehead is now trending. Of course, if you didn't know, Bishop Lamor Whitehead is the pastor of Leaders of Tomorrow International Churches, and just last Sunday, while holding Sunday services, robbers entered the sanctuary and proceeded to hold the bishop and his wife at gunpoint while removing their possessions, all while the entire event was live streamed. After departing the scene of the crime, the report started to circulate, not of the pains or psychological effects of the robbery on the parishioners. Mind you, that wasn't the case. But the news started to circulate concerning the amount of the jewelry that was reportedly stolen from the bishop and his wife. Now, while there have been no interviews, at least up until this point that I've seen, from any of the congregants, there have been countless live streams from the bishop. Now, while the bishop has been continuously pleading for the return of the jewelry and the capture of those who took it, we have also learned a few things about the bishop at this time. That is why it is time for Bishop Whitehead to stand before our Fashion Board Review, the FBR. It's time for him to stand before us. Now that we have him here before us, here are the charges that have been filed against him by, not by the real court, but at least the court of public opinion. Now, before we do that, let's get him sworn in, shall we? Bishop, do you promise to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, well, let's get started here. We're titling this GLITZ, Glam, and Greed. Bishop Lamor Whitehead. Now, the word glitz, if you did not know, the word glitz is defined as extravagant but superficial display. It also means to make something glamorous or showy, right? Now, while I am a man who loves and appreciates fashion from both men and women, I, for one, stand on more of the conservative side of fashion. And while the glitz is not for me, I do not judge those who do live on the other side, which is glitz. My opinion, this is definitely where this bishop lives. He's not the only one, I might add, nor is he the first one. And listen, he most definitely won't be the last one that graces a pulpit on Sunday morning. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about. That is simply a particular post that was making its rounds on social media last week. And this post, it often makes its circulation around social media. But this one in particular was contributed to none other than Bishop T.D. Jakes. And it says, the only people who dress rich are poor folks. Now listen, while I love and appreciate the ministry of Bishop T.D. Jakes, and while I'm really not 100% certain, that this quote came from him, but I think this quote and many that circulate from time to time about rich and poor people and their choices in fashion is one that we need to address. See, here we have a bishop that has been quoted allegedly with saying, I buy what I want to buy and I wear what I want to wear. And when he said that, there's no, at least from my perspective, there's no one clergy that think there's anything wrong and that they are beyond reproach when questioned about how much they spend on what they wear or drive. But a statement like this seemingly points the finger not at the pulpit or not at the shepherd, but at the sheep. This statement, in my opinion, it reeks of judging the book by its cover. Now, I don't know about you, but I want to ask you if you are familiar with the book, The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain. Now, if many of you, if you're familiar with the books, you know that among the many things present in this book, The Prince and the Pauper, the things that are present are the identities and wealth and social class, family, appearances, and justice. There's so many of the themes, but perhaps the most important lesson in the book is taught through the theme of appearances. In making such a statement, in my opinion, this quote that's attributed to Bishop T.D. Jakes, in making this statement, it shows that you are looking solely at the appearance of a person and then making a judgment that if they are dressed a certain way, that tells the whole story about them. But again, in this story, this book, The Prince and the Pauper, the theme is to never judge a book by its cover. And my question is, what is dressing rich anyway? Does that imply that if someone is dressing or wearing luxury brands that they are quote unquote dressing rich? Well, if that's the case, then is this bishop dressing rich? Is he rich? Now, let me pose this question to those of us who know and love Bishop T.D. Jakes. But was Bishop Jakes, if he said this, always dressed in a way that his outfits matched his bank account? Now, I'm not in any way saying that Bishop T.D. Jakes is wrong or right, or saying that this statement could be somewhat viewed as hypocritical. But what I am saying is that if we are going to stand in the seat of judgment of the congregants, then we should also do the same for the leadership, which brings me to my next point, and that is the glam. That word glam is simply defined as short for glamorous. And those who depict a more glamorous look are those who we would call have a certain panache. That's the term that comes to mind when you talk about someone who is glamorous. And as we can see from this bishop, there is a lot of glamour on display, a lot of it. And I, for one, again, don't like to speak against a man or woman in their desires to dress a certain way. We can identify, at least in this context, and at least as what we've seen from this bishop, that he has a certain level of glam, not only in his fashion choices, but in what he drives, where he lives. And my question is all of that necessary for someone who is a preacher of the gospel? Now, I, for one, don't look at it from the standpoint that the preacher is somehow doing those things because he has a desire that is ungodly. No, I don't. But let's dig a little bit deeper and see can we find out what this next point is, which is greed. Now, there are those that believe that Bishop Whitehead is operating in greed. There are some that ask the question, is the pulpit just another hustle for the bishop? Along with his several other businesses and real estate, is this just another ploy to get money? Now, there is this theory that many men and women start ministry as a hustle so that they can fleece the sheep until they can start other businesses or obtain wealth through writing books that further fleece the people. In order to do that, you must have the people buy into you so that they will freely give you their monies and their fortunes. The GLITZ and the Glam help to promote this narrative, and to the chagrin of the people, they oftentimes help create what some have called pulpit pimps. Now, these pulpit pimps major in flashiness, but their motive is greed. Now, do they help some along the way? Certainly. But at the end of it all, they will harm far more than they will ever help. Now, is Bishop Whitehead a charlatan, or worse, even a pulpit pimp? Again, listen, I'm not one to judge a man or woman, for that matter, from the way they dress, because I believe that to be an unfair assessment. But I will also caution you that oftentimes where there is smoke, there's also indeed fire. And if greed is a motivating factor for anyone, be it a spiritual leader or a company executive, you don't want to stick around long enough to become a casualty. Now, what can we learn from this bishop and the surrounding situation? One thing that I'm 100% certain about, at least in my opinion, is that this bishop, although extremely fashionable, as we can see here, has erred in one way in particular concerning his fashion. That is the belief that his clothes make him. Now, if you think that clothes make you, then in my opinion, you are really in trouble. Those of us in the fashion community understand that no matter how much the clothes cost, what fabric the clothes are made with, it is not the clothes that make us, but it is we that make the clothes. Listen, a person with low self-esteem wearing high-end clothing is still a person with low self-esteem. A person with narcissistic behavior driving a Lamborghini is still a narcissist. Some will try to tell you different, but reject them and work on you making the clothes that you wear look good, because if you don't, you will waste countless dollars buying expensive clothes that don't garner the desired income or the desired outcome. Is Bishop Whitehead guilty? You know what? I'm going to let you decide if you find him guilty or not guilty. But guys, tell me what you think. Leave your questions and comments. And remember, this is HeSpoke Fashion, and I appreciate you all for watching. Please take the time to follow us on Facebook. And if you really like this episode, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone. On YouTube, please. Hit the subscribe button and the alert bell, because you don't want to miss out when we go live. That's all I have. Have a good day, good fashion, and remember, HeSpoke Fashion to you. HeSpoke Fashion.